So I'll start with this misconception that Julian Assange didn't seek to redact names and protect civilians in his publications. I'll address that first in relation to the release in 2010 by WikiLeaks of the massive trove of US military documents known as the Iraq War Logs. I'll then move on to the unique contribution of these logs to public knowledge and understanding, in particular on the extent and scale of Iraqi casualties. For those unfamiliar with our work, Iraq Body Count has been recording civilians killed in violence since the beginning of the US and UK-led military invasion and occupation of Iraq and its long drawn-out aftermath. We worked with WikiLeaks and various media outlets to carefully analyze and responsibly publish the war logs, which laid bare hitherto unknown facts about the scale and impact of the war, as well as revealing war crimes that were committed during it. Julian Assange absolutely and determinedly sought to remove names from the Iraq war logs before releasing them, but finding a way to achieve this for 390,000 documents and then implement it over a matter of weeks or even months was no small problem, and ended up causing delays to the planned launch date. This caused much frustration among some media partners, who however could also offer no realistic solution themselves. Julian, however, remained resolute on this. There would be no publication without redaction. And like IBC, he was also committed to the bigger picture contained in the logs, not only the many individual and shocking revelations which WikiLeaks' media partners had discovered and rightly wanted to expose in their reporting. Their problem was actually much smaller, since they were only selecting slices out of the whole, those particular narratives that interested those media and which could easily be redacted by hand. IBC became closely involved in the redaction of the logs as a whole. We didn't make a big public issue of this, so IBC and WikiLeaks wanted to keep the focus on the many revelations in the logs, not on our necessary censorship of them. That censorship was algorithmic and had to be excessive to safeguard against the risk of names slipping through. Sure enough, I remember that there were immediate online complaints about the heavy-handedness of the redactions, but the process used was inevitably going to have that effect. Instead of the near impossible task of anticipating every possible Arabic name, our process found and replaced every bit of text that isn't in a beginner's English dictionary or is a potential identifier such as a profession, doctor, taxi driver, and so on, while allowing a few exceptions for common military or Iraq-related terminology. The idea was prompted by how spell checkers work, and the coding was carried out by IBC's programmer at the time, with the close attention of Julian himself. But that's all the side story. The important things, and rightly so, are as mentioned what the logs revealed, including of course about Iraqi casualties, IBC's topic area. Something that the horrors still unfolding today in Gaza have brought out is how important it is to record not just bare statistics, but all possible details of the dead. Details such as their age, their gender, how they were killed, and whenever possible, their name. It is always difficult to convey the gravity and pain behind the numbers. Although we may speak of dozens killed in a particular incident or thousands over a span of time, it is of course individuals who die and are mourned. No society can consider itself civilized if it fails to give the dead the final dignity of recognition, not as a mass but as individuals. IBC's project is one that ultimately seeks to answer the only proper question when it comes to human lives, not just how many, but who was killed. To our surprise, the logs contained an unprecedented level of detail regarding individual Iraqi victims. We first noticed this when matching an entry in the logs to another previously reported case where bodies were found in a mass grave containing 28 civilian victims. While the logs list the same discovery, they also note that the families of the dead were able to identify the victims involved, and then the logs list all 28 names. Why this information, and much more like it, was kept classified and concealed from public view, I leave for others to guess. Now, having said all that, I will offer some statistics just to indicate the extent and scale of revelations on Iraqi casualties that are in WikiLeaks' publication of the logs. This is best seen in the context of what was already known and what was unique to the logs. These findings are the results of years of work still far from completed by IBC analysts working on the logs, most notably Josh Doherty. Such analysis is possible because, unlike existing official US military releases of bare statistics and trend lines, of which there were already many, the details in the logs, including the when and where of individual incidents in which civilians were killed or found dead, allowed verifiable comparisons to be made with the data already held by IBC. At the time of their release, IBC had recorded about 91,000 civilians killed over the years covered by the logs from 2004 to 2009. Our figure now stands at close to 100,000 for the same period, almost entirely due to the content of the logs. We estimated back in 2010 that we would eventually be able to add 15,000 deaths to our civilian database, and that estimate still stands, pending continued analysis of the logs. The logs have also allowed much humanizing detail to be added to our database, with 6,000 of IBC's entries either entirely or partly based on the logs, and some 3,000 names which were found only in the logs. Now, to be sure, these are only a small proportion of all the deaths IBC has documented over the past 21 years, drawing from many tens of thousands of reports based on information from Iraqi medics, police and other officials, anonymously or officially provided, usually to local or international media. But the Iraq war logs are by far the largest single source on Iraqi casualties ever put into publication, and, as far as we are concerned, there is not now, and was not in 2010, any justification for this information being withheld from the public. As mentioned, there are so many logs that it has taken years for us to apply a careful scrutiny to each one. Just one indication of the magnitude of the information in these logs and the total impossibility of redacting them all by human editing. Even machine translation, or redaction, wasn't quick, and it's a testament to Julian that his determination to make them safe meant that a solution was found and the logs could be safely published. A healthy society should not need a WikiLeaks, or for that matter, go to wars on false pretenses whose consequences are systematically recorded by militaries, but these records kept hidden until exposed by brave publishers. That the leading such publisher is kept in a high security cell without charge for years on end indicates the sorry state of our world today.